So first, why do we need DePIN? So I gave this answer from three main reasons. The first is the limitation of centralized service. So everyone knows these big names, Azure, like you said, like AWS and Tencent, Huawei, etc. And due to the data online, the expense on the cloud service has skyrocketed from $490 billion in 2022, and that will pass for $720 billion by 2024. And I think that's why they throw so many events during the last 10 months all over the world. I've got so many invitations. So that means something, right? And when the company needs to spend this large portion of expense, sorry, the connector is really good. They need to spend this much portion on the expense of their operation that must give excessive pressure on their daily operation on other parts of the expanding. So that will limit their innovation and other developments. And another one is the passive inception. And when we have like these kind of centralized nodes operator service from like Infura and Alchemy. That convenience allows DeFi to flourish, but it comes with a price. So let me give a specific example. That's in when Infura banned Iranian IP addresses in March this year to comply with US sanctions. I think this might raise a signal that makes many of us in the industry feel the ripples. So another example I give is because I used to build in a staking project. So everyone must be familiar with the gas clients. And because the Infura mainnet API went down because they didn't update it to the latest version of gas clients. So that makes lots of DApp to non-functional as well. So this also raised a signal. And like you mentioned, there are so many node operators like deploy their node service in AWS, and yeah, that's kind of like the key standards for Lido to choose the latest wave of new node operators when I do the application this year. So we will like deploy to sorry, I forgot the name to make the separate, like we need to special choose not the public clouds to apply for the latest batch. This is specifically written in their standard.
The PBT, right?
Yeah. Bare metal. Yeah, I remember the name. Yeah, they need to choose that not operators are run by bare metal that's owned by themselves. But actually, bare metal kind of like being this centralized service provider's new service that provides. So it's just a switch to another form. It didn't change. And the second reason is the user rights compromise. And when we use this kind of centralized service, so everyone can name some examples from our daily life. I think there are lots of them. So one is the infamous is the Apple tax. Some service we're having, it comes with a much expensive price other than the price provided on an Android device because Apple is pricing from this price difference. And because of the massive effect, this kind of centralized approach keeps coming and working time and again because the internet traffic goes to the top platforms and they just have the hefty capital injection and wins over the market and then rip off the users. And the third is the lower utilization rate of centralized infra. Here I give an example in charging EV charging market. So there are three mainly dominant model like service providers from the markets. The first is the charging operator dominant model, then the vehicle manufacturers like Tesla, and the third is the third party charging service platform like ChargePoint or Blackshare. Maybe you heard about these names. And this kind of centralized solution have their cons. The first is the high threshold in early stage with large amount of human resource and capital investment. And they have the unitary profitability with the current revenue model. They can only charge from the charging fee division and sell the hardware product. And the third is, especially in the post-pandemic era, everyone can sense that this kind of the infrastructure for the new era, for the future, run by these kind of private institutions would carry some certain risks to the society. So we can take a look at this ChartPoint's latest financials. According to the public data, they have kind of the heavy assets model to run, and their net loss in quarter second this year, their net loss goes from $92 million to $125 million. So they are losing money, and they just to find some new spots to build on their devices, and they care nothing about whether these charging piles function well, because they just care about getting the policy subsidies. And many of actual users, they see the maps, they travel like maybe using the last portion of their batteries to go to find a charge pile, then they find it's not working. Yeah. So these kind of centralized service providers, they're kind of like building the walled gardens. The whole business model is built on monopoly. Their revenue comes from these kind of monopolies. So for the real users, when they need to, maybe the real situation is that they maybe need to download more than 20 apps to just to charge different companies' charging piles to access to these kind of charging facilities. So the standards and the platforms right now in the market is isolated. So, but I think we can't blame on these kind of companies, because the script is written from the day one to build the company. So what our PowerPod is trying to do is build this kind of interconnectivity to tear down this kind of wall that's around the garden to provide true accessibility and convenience for the EV users. So DePIN is actually not a brand new idea. Although it's a niche market in this industry, but actually I can give you some examples that shows it's a validated, successful paradigm, not a paradigm that we here still need to prove. So think about Bitcoin mining, and before the switch to US, the Ethereum community is also kind of, we can say it's also a DePIN project. And let's talk about helium. I think it's an I call this imperfect pioneer. It's proved to the market it could work, but it's imperfect because it has some certain flaws. So the first is the twisted business model. Because it's business model that needs the customers to provide to build this network, and two, the actual demands, it actually is the business needs to institutions that need to use the network. But this kind of service that cannot provide by these ordinary people to meet the needs that the business requires from quality wise or reliability, scale, and price wise. So that could raise some problems. So another one is the consensus designed with some flaws. So the helium mechanism is the proof of coverage, but actually it separates the coverage of locations separate from their coverage. So that could raise some problem when they build some spots. For example, in the desert, no one will really use the network, so they can't capture the real demands based on this kind of consensus. So here, I would like to bring a notion that we discuss a lot internally, especially with Andy. He inspired me a lot. Is the notion that's the minimum economic unit closed loop. So this is essential criteria, I think, for a successful DePIN company to achieve. It needs to meet this closed loop that makes this loop work with the self-sufficiency and self-sustaining. With it involves the production parts and distribution and consumption and reinvestment. And I will give the example in PowerPod later. So let's talk about steeping in real world. And here a peek of our products is that PowerPod we have the D app to monitor the charging data and every details EV user need to be to have the visibility, and also our hardware product I can show you here, the charging connector and here the fixed charge box. You can also call it the mining machine. And with this loop, you can see here you have the capital expenditure and the operating expenditures. So in our case, the user becomes a pile owner. He needs to spend some money to buy the piles and share it to the network, and then he can, by sharing it to the PowerPod network, it can earn money by sharing the pile with other users to charge from the division, from the charging fee, and also the parking fee. That can mobilize their marginal assets, from the parking space. So they capture the value from the charging fee and the parking fee that can supply to cover the expense from its buying the piles. And maybe with the fee he earned from the network, he can buy another pile and put it from maybe his second house, his holiday revenue, a holiday house like that. So that means the minimum economic units close the loop. So in PowerPod, we say charge for change, and here's we can connect it later. And the sense